Malelele Pulavinaka Talofalava, and hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Pacific Empowerment Podcast with Akanesi. It's been a frustrating week for me, to be honest. I have received so many comments, and people have been annoying me so much this week. I don't know. I'm not in a good mood to accept these kind of comments this week and last week since I started sharing my opinions about the academic journal by Dr. Aporosa. People have been coming at me, especially women. I don't know why women who doesn't have anything to do with my podcast is attacking me online. There was one from the United States. I don't even know who she is, and suddenly she came on my page and suddenly swear at me, and calling me names on my page. And I'm like, I do not accept this kind of disrespect. You can go and disrespect me on your page or any other pages, but not on my page. It's like you're coming straight at me to my face and saying those things, which you can't do face to face. But for you to be brave enough to come and say those names to me, especially when you're a woman and I didn't attack you on anything, and another woman, I thought she went to Quintalida College with me, but I do know her face. She did went to school in Tonga, and she was a bit older than me. And she came at me as well for the academic journals and saying I should, go and talk to them. And she was trying to give me advice, on what I should do with my podcast and what I shouldn't do. And that's the thing with people who doesn't have anything to do with their lives and who hasn't achieved anything. They are quick to give other people's advice and opinions for the people who are doing something. So they are quick. The people who are just sitting on the couch at home and doing nothing are so quick to give 2 cents to those who are doing something. And I do not tolerate. I'm a good person, and like I posted on social media, if you didn't follow me, there is a difference between being good and being nice. And I can be good, but I do not have to tolerate all these kind of behavior. I mean, I do let some comments go, and that's why I delete comments, because I don't want to waste my time replying to these stupid comments. And like I said, my time is important, and I don't want to waste my time, and I want to protect my peace and my mentality, and I don't want to deal with these, idiots. But it's still frustrating to me. I mean, if Dr. Barroso was the one attacking me, it would be understandable because I was the one, I was critiquing his paper. But for people to come in and attack me for out of nowhere, and I have no idea who they are, especially for women, when we're trying to support each other, I will have to come back and respond to whatever disrespect you're giving me. And I was responding to their disrespect, and then they went on their page and saying that I disrespect them, and they messaged me to delete the comments and the post. And I'm like, you came at me first. So, like I said before, this is not my first time of people disrespecting me. When I started talking about the faikava, all the faikava men were coming after me. They tried to bully me, and I have already succeeded. I have already gone past that level, and they weren't able to shut me up. And for those of you who thinks that you can come to try and shut me up now, no. I think if I have overcome and I can take the criticism from the fight government because they are so vicious, then there's no one else. I'm not afraid of anyone. Like I always say, I do not fear anyone. I only fear God. And for you women to come and disrespect me like that, it's okay. Come and comment on my page, but be prepared to take whatever I will give you in whatever response I will give you. And that is what self-worth means. Self-worth is knowing when to set the boundaries and knowing when to let people walk all over you. If you allow people to walk all over you and come and call you names all the time, then you don't have any self-worth. A woman or a person who knows their worth know when to set the boundaries for people to stop disrespecting me. And that is what I'm doing. So that was very disappointing. And also another issue I'm currently dealing with, someone sent me a screenshots of a Fijian public page, copying my videos and uploading it to their page as their own. And this is another issue, with so many Pacific pages. This is what they do. Instead of creating original contents, they come and copy other people's contents and then they upload it as their own. And some of them make money off it. For those of you who are coming at me and say, I'm only doing this for money, I'm doing this to help out people. But so what if I get money from it? I have done so much work, and running a podcast is not an easy job. And if you can't come and do what I'm doing, then please be quiet, because you cannot run your own podcast. You cannot take other people's criticism. You cannot take other people's bullying you online. So running a podcast, and if I receive money from that, so what? I deserve it. I deserve the money I get from the hard work that I'm doing running this podcast to help educate some of you idiots. Anyways, I'm so sick of this. Sometimes I'm so sick of how people, because since the beginning, they try to shut me down. They try to humble me. They try to make me small and keep me down. But no, and not me. And thankfully for bringing this to my awareness, because some people have messaged me and commented and said, these pages, like the Fijian page who stole my videos, have been doing this for a long time and been stealing other people's contents and post it on their page. And if you didn't steal my videos, I wouldn't come after you. But now that you are stealing my videos and you're stealing other people's videos, I'm going to come after you. I'm going to come after you, and I'm going to come after all the public pages in the Pacific on Facebook who has been stealing other people's contents and post it as their own. I don't care. I can go to the Facebook offices here in Australia, or I can contact them directly. I don't care what I have to do, but I will come after you, and I will try and shut down all these public pages. Because if you're not creating your own original content and you're just stealing other people's stuff, then your page deserves to be shut down and removed, because you're not creating something useful but to steal other people's contents. If you want to share, click share on my videos. And some people say that I have to accept it and let people continue. No. This is why so many of the foreigners come and steal our stuff, because we let them come and steal it and we just sit there and look at them like we're stupid. No, I'm not stupid. I'm going to come after all of you, all the Pacific pages, and try and remove any pages that doesn't create original contents. Should be removed from Facebook. Anyways, that is my frustration. I want to take out my frustration, but in this episode, I will talk about tou'a specifically, because I received messages from other people about tou'a and its origins and how it came about and how it changes. And then I did a few research online this week, if there was any academic papers on tou'a. And surprisingly, I found some academic papers online that has been written by Tongan academics about tou'a. So I'm going to share those research in this episode. Our people, they want to use respect for us to not critique other people's work. And they say because he has a title, he's a professor, he's a doctor, you shouldn't question things. But it just, for example, the doctors in the hospital, they do make mistakes. So you have to question everything. You cannot just follow blindly. Only a fool is following blindly. Even though they know it doesn't make sense and the information is wrong, they still follow without speaking. And I want to encourage our people to stop doing that, because that's how people come and walk all over you. Because you try and be quiet and be humble, because you're afraid, of other people's opinions about you. If you speak up, you have to start speaking up, and you have to start critiquing people's work. It doesn't matter if they are a church minister, if they are the presidents, if they are doctors, if they are professors. We have to start questioning things, because the reason why it's really hard to break the toxic cycles in the Pacific that I'm trying to break now, especially with the faikava and tou'a, because we let it slide for so long. And we have been keeping quiet for so long, and we let these people continue their vicious behavior without addressing these issues in our Pacific community. And that is why our Pacific community doesn't grow. So I want to encourage our people to start speaking up. Critique, even if you critique my work, but please do it respectfully instead of calling names. Other people come and commented and said that I have to take it. If I'm posting my stuff online, that I have to take their comments and their calling names and their opinions. But just to educate our people, calling other people names is not an opinion. That is not an opinion. If you want to come at me and critique do it respectfully instead of coming and calling me names. And I didn't call Aparosa any names, but the reason why I said what I said in his thing, because they were coming at me first. They were calling me all sort of names, saying that I don't know what I'm doing, don't know what I'm talking about, because they have, the academic title, they know better. So of course I will respond. So don't be surprised. If you try and poke the beast, and then the beast wake up and retaliate, do not cry. You have to take it. Okay? Anyways, I'm going to read Dr. Aparosa's response to my critique of his journal. And I didn't reply. I didn't bother reply because, to be honest, I did not want to address him. I did not want to critique his article, but because they pushed me to read it, of course I have to provide my opinion. And I do not beat around the bush. I'm going to have to provide my honest opinion. I don't want to beat around the bush because to tackle issues that are very sensitive, we cannot beat around the bush and we cannot keep quiet anymore. We have to come directly and we have to come plainly about it. Anyways, this is Dr. Aparosa's response to my video, so I'll just read it out. Malo pula Miss Kaufusi, this is Aparosa. It's great to see your interest in Kava research and your clear passion for the topic. Can I first ask, please, that you do not delete comments that disagree with your position, as this is not conducive to academic debate. But like I said, calling other people names is not a debate. And his mate was calling me names, so I had to delete. And that was one of the reasons why I delete them, because I don't want to waste my time responding to them. And I do not want to change people's opinions on foolish comments. That's why I delete them. But if you want me to respond, I will respond. But I protect my time, and I don't want to waste my time and waste my peace on leaving foolish comments and comments that doesn't help, with what I'm doing. I'm just going to delete it. In your recent video, you analyzed the demythologizing and rebranding of Kava literature review paper. While you may disagree with some statements in the paper, example that Kava is not addictive, please note that it was published in the triple peer-reviewed Q1 journal, Drug Science, Policy and Law. This means the paper underwent rigorous review by multiple independent experts on 3 occasions, with this taking almost 12 months. If you believe it contains factual inaccuracies, I encourage you to contact the journal's editor and present your evidence for review. You are correct that the paper is a literature review, not a clinical trial. And most clinical trials involve products containing piper-methysticum, such as extracts or tablets. However, that paper also references our work collecting data at the Komete using Kava in traditional contexts. Since the publication, we have conducted more clinical trials at the Komete. As noted in most of our peer-reviewed papers, understanding Kava psychopharmacology is complex due to misinformation about its health effects and the use of non-traditional forms, example capsule extracts of up to 250 milligrams Kava-lactones per day. To my knowledge, our Kava research unit is the only group doing clinical trials using traditional Kava. Studies currently under review, including EEG brain scans and investigations into hepatotoxicity risk and the effects of combining Kava with alcohol and other substances. Again, these are all reviewed by external experts and published regardless of whether the findings align with our expectations. Research must remain evidence-driven. Research must remain evidence-driven, and yet we see evidence everywhere in the Pacific and our Pacific community. I don't understand. Not just the evidence in the lab. I also agree with you about the unacceptable behavior sometimes seen in Kava spaces, including disrespect toward women and tou'a. Traditional Kava settings are grounded in respect-based values and which we teach and uphold in our research and university programs. This respect has no place in genuine Kava practice, and those who behave otherwise misunderstand the cultural foundations of the space. They must be called out. Likewise, spending hours away from the family, leading to neglect counters our Pacific respect-based values. It is poor choices and disrespectful behavior that must be called out. Kava cannot be held responsible for poor choices and disrespectful behavior by those who are not guided by our values of whakapapa, of atauhiwa, and lototo. See, this is the problem. When so many people said that Kava is not responsible, then why are we not legalizing marijuana? Because marijuana is just like kava. It gives you, a high and it gives you peace. Because some people said kava is better than alcohol because it gives them peace. Why not legalize marijuana then in the Pacific if that is the case? And then let people decide. It is not their fault that marijuana is legalized. And for you to say that Kava is not responsible, I have to disagree. Kava is responsible for this issue because we are allowing people to drink Kava excessively. So Kava has to take part in this. We cannot isolate Kava. The reason why we're talking about this now because of Kava. If there was no Kava, there was no faikava. If there was no faikava, there wouldn't be any tou'a, and we wouldn't be talking now. So you cannot isolate Kava from all these poor behaviors and these choices. If that is the case, allow marijuana. Legalize marijuana in the Pacific and let people decide. At Ms. Kaufusi, I believe we share more common ground than you might think. However, understanding will unlikely occur in written exchanges or verbal sparring. I invite you to an open talanoa, one grounded in Pacific respect and values. I'm easy to reach and would welcome the opportunity to speak further. Ke manu ia maupeho halafononga apo. It's funny how he said it in this way, but they were attacking me in the comments and said, "Oku ke magoy, are you not embarrassed for what you're posting?" That's what they were saying in the comments. That's why I deleted them. And then they comments pretend to be respectful. This is what I mean about our people. Too many pretenders. And if you want to be interviewed in my podcast, do reach out. I try to avoid reaching out to other people because I don't want to waste my time. If you want to come on my podcast, reach out to me. I'm happy to interview you. There are so many professionals out there on Kava. So if you're listening and you want to say something about this issue, do reach out and let's organize something. But I won't be reaching out to people. Anyways, so I received a message from someone on Facebook sharing her knowledge from her families about tou'a, how it came about and how it changed. It was really interesting because this is the first time I've heard of this. And I can't wait to share it because it's really interesting. And here is her message. And for the first time, she wanted me to reveal her name. So her name is Estavea. And she's not afraid if people come after her. And I only share the name if the people who message me wants me to share their name. But if they want me to keep them anonymous, then I'll have to keep them anonymous to protect their identity. But Estavea is not afraid of anyone. And I'm so glad to meet like-minded people like Esta, who is not afraid of other people's opinions, but, standing for the truth and speaking the truth. So this is her message. Hi, Akane Skaufusi. I've been seeing your posts and haven't had a chance to say anything. It's a lot to mull over, but this is just a few thoughts towards the discussion I want to share with you. I'm sending in message because don't want to go over it on your page in case you have already spoken about this stuff. I am a mom of 6, so it can get busy, but I want to share thoughts on this with you in case it can help with the discussions. If not, sorry, he moli hataimi. But here it goes. I lived with 2 of my grandma's sisters in Tonga in 2003, and one of them explained to me back then about how faikava used to be only held at a girl's house as a form of Tongan courtship. So when a guy liked a girl, he would grab mates, family, and go to the girl's house that he liked and have kava session there. And the married uncles were there as a safeguard to maintain and keep the peace mo whakaapa-apa amongst the younger men. Now we know it's not so whakaapa-apa, respect. So in this original Tongan courtship model, na ke tauhipe ai ona o tou'a, because our Tongan culture is always about that. Ke tauhi malmalu ai whiwhine tonga. That's what it is supposed to be, isn't it? So she's saying here, because our Tongan culture is always about that, to keep the respect and the dignity of a Tongan woman. That's what it's supposed to be, isn't it? My grandma's sister said the reason the faikava changed venue was because when the war happened, people had to move out of Kolo, of town, and live away from their homes in Uta, in the rural area. Because the foreign armies were in the city in Kolo. It was around this time, can't remember if it was during or after the war, that the faikava changed and they started meeting in community halls and getting a tou'a to do the tou'a there in the community halls instead. I agree that tou'a has changed and now become more akin to how we see the geisha's role in Japanese culture. Our Tongan tou'a now has moved from being tauhemol malu, being respectful, to becoming an entertainment piece not just for young men, but also for married men. She has to delight, entertain, and be at the whims of whatever the men want. I think the more unrestrained, wild behavior seen online in some Kava circles, not all, is explained by the anonymous effect. Google summarizes its definition as the anonymous effect in psychology describes how anonymity can lead to a loss of self awareness, a phenomenon known as the individuation, which causes people to act in ways they normally wouldn't do. Which causes people to act in ways they normally wouldn't due to reduced social constraints. This inhibition can result in increased antisocial or impulsive behaviors, such as aggressive or toxic communication, because the individual feels less accountable for their actions. Our Tongan Toa role as geisha probably brought on more by the venue being anonymous, not her home where she would be safe and respected and honored, does not fit well at all in weighing it to uphold to our Tongan values. It debases and demeans our fellow Tongan women and our Tongan Toa. If this way of Toa as Tongan courtship was originally used before and then changed because of the war, it can always change back. The war is over now. The original way of Tongan Toa as the form of Tongan courtship needs to be brought back because it actually holds up to be more true to our Tongan values of whakaapa-apa ia nge awhiwhine tonga. Pea og tokone ang ia ki he tauhe molmalo e whiwhine tonga. The Tongan women is more respected and it will help to keep their dignity if we change it back to how it was before. So her name is Estavea, and it's very interesting to hear that the war changed this because people moved to the rural. And it makes you think, why didn't the people continue to do the same thing in the rural area? Moving to the rural area shouldn't change things. And why would they brought a woman to the community hall back then if it was only meant for courtship? And this is where it went wrong. And it needs to change back to how it was. But this is a very interesting piece of information. If you have more information about this change during the war, feel free to message me with your information because it's really interesting. And I did a few research. And I came across a few academic papers, and one by Dr. Futahelu. I think the Tongans are familiar with Dr. Helu. And one is by Hilda A. She wrote this paper for her Doctor of Philosophy 2022, a thesis submitted to Auckland University of Technology in fulfillment of the requirements. So I'm going to read Dr. Hilda A. paper. I'm so glad because she covers the Toa, like the whole thing. There's like a whole chapter about the Toa. If you have time, do go ahead and read it. You can find this on Google. The name of the paper is How Do Evolving Kava-Related Practices Impact the Role of Tongan Women Living in Aotearoa by Hilda A. Beau Aveika ki Moana. And it's so funny because in her paper, she is interviewing Toa, with the experiences. And I'm like, what I'm currently doing now is like I'm writing for a paper because people are messaging me with their experiences. The Toa are messaging me with their experiences. And I'm doing my research and I'm talking about all of this. I feel like I'm writing my own philosophy paper on this. But she based her paper on Kava, the female Kava, faikava. It's really interesting. If you have time, do read it. And I won't be able to read the whole paper, but there's so many interesting stuff to go through here. Hearing from her interviewing of the Toa, I just highlighted a few that I want to highlight it in this episode. So this section here, sit pretty and serve the kava. There was common agreement that a Toa is often chosen because of her beauty, and part of her role was to sit there and look pretty. She was physically attractive. She had skills that enabled her to entertain and humor the men. Because of this, there were fundraising opportunities made to include multiple Toa who could charm the men with the anticipation that the more Toa present, the more money would be raised. Can you see? It feels like they're using the women. I talked about this before. My role as a Toa is to basically sit pretty and serve the kava by saying, I think she's one of the Toa that they interviewed. If you are called on to be a tou'a, you are a physically attractive girl, you're pretty and you're there. You should be honored that they have asked you to go and tou'a. Lose, that's another tou'a. The presence of a beautiful tou'a who is able to serve kava and entertain the group is likely to increase the number of attendees at the kava group. The tou'a felt her role was not only to serve the kava, but to charm the man with her beauty and wittiness. Back then, hardly any girls in the kava, and plus I was good looking and everybody wants to come in and look, oh, look at that beautiful girl. By Alice, that's another tou'a. To sit and look pretty and to serve them and to humor them and to, entertain them. That's the moral of it. By Siu, that's another tou'a. When it comes to fundraising, kalapu groups utilize more than one tou'a and was viewed as a vehicle for increasing fundraising opportunities through accentuating the presence of a beautiful tou'a there to serve. It was reported that by having more than one tou'a, it incited rivalry between groups as to who can raise the most money. The purpose of the kalapu kava was to raise money. However, the purpose of the tou'a was to encourage attendance. Interesting. Nowadays, they put 2 or 3 tou'a in a group. They put 2 or 3 tou'a in another group. That's how they do it. But the traditional way of doing it, it's one circle with one group with one tou'a. One tou'a. Nowadays, 2 or 3. The more tou'a, the better for them. By Sina, that's another tou'a. Sometimes it's a fundraising. It's a big one where they'll do in a church hall. And there's heaps of tou'a there, like 5. And they'll be like competing for, who's going to get which group's going to get the most money, like that. By Siu, another tou'a. In these big things, these big fundraisers, there's likely maybe about 4 or 5 different big groups of men drinking kava, and each group has a tou'a. The participation of multiple physically attractive tou'a who are adept in the art of entertaining the members of the kava group increases the chances of raising a decent amount of money. The involvement of multiple tou'a as the use of monetary funds to pay the tou'a led the participants to believe this may no longer be under the domain of traditional Kava-related practices. They all agreed that there are some traditional ceremonies with tou'a, however. They felt there was an evolution of Kava-related practices, and specifically the role of the tou'a. See, this is what I mean. I've talked about this in my previous interview with Lucky, how church are using women to fundraise money in Kalapu, and people thought I was crazy, but here it is. This is the proof right here. An academic paper was written from tou'a themselves saying this is true. This is what they use the tou'a for, not only to serve the kava, but to merely entertain them, to charm them, for their satisfaction. So it's like a strip club with clothes on. That is what it is. As you can see here, the evolution of the tou'a role. With the introduction of paying the tou'a, participants felt the respect for the tou'a had decreased and the tou'a was not always taking her role seriously. In some situations, she allowed other distractions such as her phone to remove her mentally from the environment. The role of the tou'a was evolving. Yeah, so they say because they hated being a tou'a, but they're only there for the money, they uses the phone as a distraction. And men became frustrated because these women would just look at their phone instead of paying attention to them. And they started becoming rude to them in the faikava because they didn't pay attention. It says here, when Siu first went as a tou'a, she did not want to be there, and the only reason she went was for the money. She did not want or encourage any interaction with the man. And Siu said, because I just went there for the money, and the men were like talking to me, and I was like, nah, don't talk to me. They'll just say it right there. Oh, she just come for the money. Because they expect you to be like, oh, it's not about the money, it's about them. To put them first before money. But then, behind it, money is the number one thing that I came there for, she said. With some Kava-related practices veering away from traditional settings and Kava becoming a global commodity, some participants felt the role of the tou'a was evolving in a negative way. The respect for the role of the tou'a was declining as the environment and motivation for Kava consumption has altered or evolved from the past. So has the attitudes of the Kava group participants. As done traditionally, whoever is in charge will dictate Kava groups, protocols, and what that will entail. This ultimately means that the person in charge is the one who will dictate how the interactions with the tou'a may play out. Therefore, some Kava groups may allow or condone disrespectful behavior towards the tou'a to take place within their Kava group settings. See, this is why it's really hard to regulate tou'a and to put a policy around it. I know some of you are saying that it is impossible to ban tou'a because that's how women earn money. But we shouldn't look at it that way because people can earn money from other things apart from tou'a. You can see the Philippines. They are coming from the Philippines and work, do household, cleaning, all those instead of going tou'a. And working for your money, will make you appreciate it instead of just sitting there and earn money. You won't be able to protect all the tou'a. Because of these cover clubs, it is up to them how they dictate how it works. So you won't be able to protect the tou'a. Some of the faikava is done in garage. Some of the faikava is done publicly, but you won't be there. Even if you put a security there, you won't be able to put a security all over the kava groups. That is why it is better to ban the tou'a completely, because you won't be able to police everyone and the women will continue to be sexually harassed. The consequences of evolving Kava-related practices on the tou'a. With a lot of the negative actions of the Kava group participants and the tou'a being played out on social media, the role of the tou'a has become tarnished and participants would say it no longer holds that respect that it used to, unless it is performed in a traditional setting. The tou'a role for many is seen as a side hustle for money. It has a negative connotation that some see as having an adverse impact on Tongan women. Tou'a are becoming considered of low status within the Tongan community. This may pose conflicting ideals for the tou'a as she is forced to choose between her degraded status in the community as a tou'a compared with the need to provide an income for her and her family. So Lose, one of the tou'a, she said, I believe that the tou'a is bringing our status or, lack of better words, but it's like bringing our being of a woman down. As a Tongan woman, You said if you go tou'a and you don't have a job, you are like low in the community, they kind of look down on you. With the knowledge that the tou'a are considered of low standing in the Tongan community, the women who tou'a must consider the social consequences of the decision to be a tou'a. The value of providing a much needed income versus low standing in one's community is one of the many challenges tou'a face today. As the tou'a considers her options and the challenges that her choices may bring, she has to weigh up the consequences between the necessity to earn money and the degraded status in her community. This can bring about feelings of isolation and vulnerability. And yes, like I said, tou'a is like prostitution. It's like you're going and stand there and someone come and pay you either for sexual acts or just to talk to them or just to hang out with them without any sexual acts. So it is like prostitution. It's like, in a strip club. And of course, women's dignity will be low because of this kind of work. And I don't encourage women to do it. In the beginning, it may be a little of learning, but as the connection between tou'a and the Kava group men changes, the banter and flirting may become inappropriate, and the Kava space may no longer be a safe place for the tou'a. The participants believe that it starts with the disrespect and demeaning of her status within the Kava group and therefore may have a negative impact on her mental health and well-being. If the tou'a is viewed as a joke, they may find amusement by making fun of her and putting her down to get a laugh. Alisi said she's one of the tou'a. It's the kind of language they approach the tou'a. When they sit down, they call them anything that comes in their head. When they approach a tou'a, it's to them, it's fun. It's the way they jokes by putting that person down. The tou'a is not immune to the negativity that is encompassing her in that environment. The harm may not be obvious initially, nevertheless, the impact of putting down and making fun of the tou'a will take a toll on her. This attitude is reflected on the tou'a and she will take this negativity with her when she leaves the Kava group settings. But nowadays, it's Kava drinking and being a tou'a. Both is harmful. Harmful physically, harmful, mentally, and for the well-being of the person and whoever that person comes in contact with. Whatever she takes from being a tou'a, being affected by the tou'a experience, she takes with her everywhere she goes. And people will hear about it whether they like it too or not. This is by another tou'a named Langi. Several participants shared the plight of illegal immigrants who are unable to seek employment legally and are encouraged or pressured by family to obtain an income by being a tou'a. Despite the Kava group environment being unhealthy for her in many ways, she may feel she has no choice but to go back to the Kava group for the income. Alisi said because of that kind of attitude, because people think you go tou'a, and a lot of the young ones that go tou'a, especially here, are overstayers and people. Mostly the tou'a here are overstayers. This was a concern for the participants and felt the young tou'a were vulnerable at the Kava group and also in the transporting of her to and from the Kava group. If the same person is offering to pick up the tou'a, it would be natural to develop a connection. However, this could be dangerous for a tou'a who is away from her family and feeling emotional fragile. Alice said someone in the community who is reliable to go pick the tou'a up and they end up having an affair because you know how the tou'a are fragile like the overstayer and they needed some comfort. This is so true because that is why I'm saying to ban the tou'a. Because even though these women are earning money, but at what cost? At families breaking up and children leaving fatherless because the man is running away with the tou'a. We have to compare the costs and which one is greater. So that these overstayers not getting money, they can earn money from other work. There are other work that they can do to earn money from. So we look at the cost of having the tou'a. Even though the tou'a is earning money, married men mostly leaves their wives and kids and run away with the tou'a. So break up families, leaving children fatherless, family neglected, you know. And what cost of banning the tou'a? Not much. Just these women not having to earn income through the tou'a, they can earn income through other jobs. What do you think? Look at other nationalities, Fijian, Samoan, there are many overstays here overseas. Philippines, from different regions. What are they doing to earn money? Maybe look at that. What are these women doing to earn money? Because they don't have tou'a. They're not prostituting themselves to these men to entertain men for money. So we have to compare the cost, and the cost is greater when we have tou'a. And a girl messaged me that her husband is currently having an affair with a tou'a because the husband is feeling sorry for the tou'a. The tou'a comes from Tonga and she doesn't have any job and he feels sorry for her. So he has to go and pick her up and take her somewhere. Do you see how crazy that sounds? He's feeling sorry for the tou'a and he's going and pick her up and take her everywhere and leave the wife at home. This is why we need to compare the cost of having tou'a and cost of banning tou'a. And not only that, but sexually abusing the tou'a, sexually harassing the tou'a. That's a whole another story. As you can see here, the issue usually is when they go and pick up the tou'a and drop it off. You either build a connection or the man is sexually assaulting you. There's so many cases like that happens to the tou'a. So we have to compare the cost. And you can see here there is a whole section called sexual objectification of the tou'a. It's funny because when I created that video, the sexualization of women in the faikava circle, I didn't look up anything here, but I just created it because of what I've seen and what I grew up seeing and what I grew up hearing. And I didn't know that there is a paper that was written in 2022 already about this sexual objectification of the tou'a. It's a long section, but I can't read all of them. So here, look at this section. There is an expectation from some tou'a and the man that the tou'a role is to serve and give pleasure to the man. With the evolution of Kava-related practices, it is becoming apparent that no longer is the flirting innocent banter with the hope of connecting with the tou'a romantically. The flirting is less discreet and deemed by participants to be downright rude. Nevertheless, it is having an impact on the tou'a, and within this environment, relationships between tou'a and men in the Kava group are developing. Sina said she's one of the tou'a, but like those old days of how they respect the tou'a, if they see a tou'a there, they highly respect the tou'a. But nowadays, they misusing it of having a tou'a there. They think they do the flirting, do the other things to the tou'a. Lose said, another tou'a, we're there for pleasure. To give pleasure to men and to be talked at where there are more than often is not respectful. Flirting is rude, and quite often that's how married men take off with the tou'a. See? It's right here. When a tou'a is seen as a sexual object and one to flirt with, it appears that the Kava group participants allowed the tou'a to be disrespected and treated this way. Some say the conversation is vulgar and the tou'a is somewhat put on display and will dance while the men clap. Participants see this as a contributing factor to the sexualization of the kava. The tou'a becomes an object to lust after. The word lust. You see? Langi said she's one of the tou'a. I have heard a lot of these tou'a. They just get in with the man, stare at them, vulgar conversation, and that's what the atmosphere is like. It's a vulgar situation. Losse said, placed in there to, to be looked at. It just contributes to the sexualizing of the kava, where we are there for the pleasure to look at, for men to seduce, for men to lust after. Those underpinning thing are behind the tou'a, Losse said. See, these are the tou'as themselves. When the tou'a is seen to respond to the man in a way that the men like, then the sexualization of the tou'a role is perpetuated by all who are there. The respect for the tou'a and her role is no longer there. The tou'a is not just sitting there serving the kava. She is actively involved with the man in an inappropriate way. Saini said it's the respect con out of it. It's ridiculous. You've got men sitting there clapping and the tou'a is dancing for them. As soon as the poor girl gets up and starts doing that, that's when you know it's gone. It's lost. The respect is not there at all. So what a big change when I see things like that. I showed the videos in my episode, Sexualization of the Women in Faikava Circle, where Toad was dancing, and then the old man, were like putting money on, clothes on his shoulders, on his waist, and very disgusting. Yuck. All the Toa and some of the other participants made statements about the physical touching that is aimed at the Toa during the cover session. This is where flirting is no longer a vocal expression. It is now being expressed physically. Some Toa are okay with this, but other participants felt it was inappropriate and uncomfortable. Langi said, yeah, they were like, it would be just little things, like they would be talking and they would, try and hold my hand at first. It was like they'd put their hands over my hand and I'd be sitting there trying, like, not to touch me. And it got to the stage where one of them put their hand on my knee and I pinched him so hard that he never did it again. Siu said, another Toa, they'll flirt with you like or they'll hit your bum when you get up to go to the bathroom or go out and have a break or smoke. It's really weird, really annoying. See? Even hit the bum. That's sexual harassment. Many of the participants believe that the behavior of the men is somewhat distorted as they are drunk. They think that when the men consume kava, it makes them act similar to someone who has drunk alcohol. Hello? That's what I've been saying. And they become less capable of making good decisions. In this relaxed state, the lines become blurred of what is appropriate behavior with the tou'a, and some of the men who consume kava will touch, flirt, and sexually objectify the tou'a. See what I've been saying? Sexual harassment comes at it because putting a woman in a group of intoxicated men, it doesn't matter if it's alcohol or kava, she will be disrespected because they are drunk. And yes, you can get drunk in kava. Sina said, another Toa, yep, I think it is drunk like alcohol because that's when they are thinking is not right, because if they are relaxing, they know what they're doing. But drunk, that's when they do crazy stuff. Like, for example, they stand up and hula hula with the Toa, and that's when they rub the body of the Toa and everything. That's when they flirting with the Toa. They're not thinking right because they are drunk. You see right here, the Toa themselves said they are drunk like they're drinking alcohol. So kava is just like alcohol when you are drinking it excessively. You get drunk from it and you don't think straight. So the saying that says kava is not like alcohol is a myth. See, they get up and dance with the Toa and then rub themselves on the Toa. That's disgusting. Ugh, yuck. Sela said, but I know I'm within the faikava, even at church when you go past, you can see how people look so horny when they sit beside the tou'a. And I think that wasn't the purpose. Yeah, but at the same time, the tou'a, the way they dress, oh my gosh. The low gut, it just feels like their boobs gonna come out. You like just exposing yourself to say, yeah, come and touch me. It's different when you go to the nightclub than when you come tou'a in the kava. And I agree, it's really different because in the nightclub, you are mixing with other people and not everyone is eyeing you in the nightclub and it's very dark. So not many people see you. But if you're dressing like that and then you go and sit in a faikava where all the men is looking right at you and what you're wearing and what you're exposing, I mean, it's common sense, right? And these are men. Their weakness is in the eyes, like I said before. With the lowering of morals, honesty, and values within some Kava group setting, participants felt that the atmosphere was rife with opportunities for the tou'a and members of the Kava group to develop relationships regardless of marital status. There was concern that the man would form a connection with the tou'a and profess to be single when he is still married. Sina said, when you go tou'a, that's when married men come in and say, oh, I'm already divorced. I've got problems with my wife. I'm still single and everything. And that's when you say, okay, then you start to build a relationship with that person. But at the end, you find out that he still have a family. Yeah, he's already married. So this is the part where I was laughing because when the Talanoa with participants had been completed, the researcher received a message from one of the participants regarding the use of a prostitute to take the role of the tou'a. This video that was circulated was confirmed by other sources as well. It is important to note that this was not a Tongan Kava group. Part of Kava-related practices evolving is the consumption of Kava across the broad range of settings, with Kava consumers having little or no knowledge of the KRB in a traditional setting, including the value of a tou'a. Siu said, see, I told you, I was right about it. Kava Tonga is now becoming the new prostitution version. Last week, a hookah prostitute was paid online to serve Kava at a specific club and end up performing oral sex with some of the men in that Kava session. How disgusting. That is what happens when Tongan girls refuse to serve Kava because of such behavior. The men in the Kava will turn to online prostitution. I saw it with my own two eyes, the video showed by men in the Kava. And yes, that is true. I saw it with my own eyes as well. People sending me videos of a Palangi prostitution but this one is a Tongan Kava group with a Palangi prostitution. And they perform sexual acts to this prostitution in the Kava group. That is how bad it is. I don't know what's wrong with our Tongan men because other groups are not doing that in faikava. That is not what faikava is for. Just go to the strip club if that's what you want. Okay, so this is the recommendation. It's so long. I'll just read this and then we'll continue. So this recommendation, education, the key to change. Educating those involved in Kava-related practices was believed to be the key to making some positive changes with Kava-related practices. It is important to note that these issues that have been highlighted in this doctoral research are not found amongst the majority of Kava groups. Nevertheless, it is important that we do not minimize the harm that is being caused by Kava groups that are operating in ways that are harmful to tou'a, the men of the group, and their families. Some participants felt strongly that it is necessary to establish protocols to protect the tou'a. Some form of support system for the tou'a victim of sexual assault would be beneficial. Providing education for the men around the way they interact with the tou'a would be a way to mitigate any forms of sexual abuse and inappropriate sexual relations. The participants felt it was necessary for the person transporting the tou'a to be a chaperone for the tou'a who is there to support the tou'a and advocate for her if needed. This would include not allowing any form of sexual content in the interaction with the tou'a at any time. This may lessen chances of inappropriate license to develop. I think the safest way is just remove tou'a completely. The problem with this education, if we do education, we cannot educate everyone. And the man will still continue the behavior. It doesn't matter how much education. The only way to protect the women is to remove tou'a completely and remove the women from the Kava circles and let men serve their own Kava and drink Kava themselves. That is the only way to protect the women. I mean, if we are doing education, how long can we be able to educate these men? And faikava circle is all over the world. We cannot educate every man. The only way is to remove tou'a completely and just ban tou'a from these Kava circles. That is the only way to protect the women. There are other ways to earn money. I don't believe the education will help because these men will continue. Kava circle, they get drunk. So why would you send a woman there? It's not safe. It doesn't matter if you take a chaperone or whatever. Not every night the chaperone will be available and then the woman will be left, vulnerable to these men. It is also strongly suggested that the community do not support the victim of abuse in Kava groups. It is advised that there needs to be some form of support provided to these abusive victims to help them work through the trauma of sexual abuse. It is stated that too often the victim is shamed and gossiped about and her voice suppressed. Sela said, I found as a woman we don't have enough support to be able to support the person, the victim, because a lot of the time we just blame them. And I think that's really actually happened in the Tongan community. We actually should think of how to protect our own women instead of us Lau talk about others' gossip. Exactly. And that is what I've been saying over and over in my videos. These women do not have enough support and they will continue to not have enough support. The only protective way is for them to not go in tou'a. The students who are coming overseas to teach, they have work hours where they can do some work and earn money, but if you're needing easy money, you have to choose easy money or get sexually harassed or sexually abused by these men. You can't separate the two. Easy money comes at a cost. Easy money come with its own problems. The only way to protect the women is to remove tou'a completely. I will read a testimony from a lady who shared her testimony yesterday. Okay, so this is her testimonies. Hello, my girl. I truly love your work. Please keep me anonymous with this one and change the village to maybe another place, and that is it. Take it away like you do and read it to the world. This story will only hit two people, him and his daughter, who we sponsored to come here by us, then just got up and went to Mildura to meet some random Tongan man who was overstaying there. Both played us like fools. With that being said, I met up with her recently and it felt good to let everything out onto the table to her face and then blocked her on Facebook. And that was forgiven and never again. First and foremost, I want to open my heart and share something that has weighed deeply on me for years. My father passed away in 2012, a man of true kava, but never a man of flirtation or disrespect. His kava circles were sacred, filled with talk about life, family, and above all, God. When he left this world, it broke me to see how the meaning of kava has changed. So many men now abuse what was once a space of brotherhood and wisdom. My father's kava was about connection, but today, too often, it's about escape and temptation. As time moved on, I told my mother, You're so young, Mom. You deserve to smile again, to feel love, to live. I didn't want her to grow old in loneliness. One day she looked at me and said, How do I use Facebook? I laughed and said, Come on, I'll teach you. It took weeks, months even, but she learned, and through that she met a Tongan man from a village in Tonga, a police officer. At first he seemed quiet, humble, and kind, but little by little I saw another side emerge. I was working hard back then, carrying the weight, paying the bills, keeping us safe. Mom and I even flew to Tonga to meet his family. We stayed 3 months, but even that wasn't enough for him. Behind his silence was anger. Behind his charm was deceit. Kava became his excuse and other women became his habit. When we brought him to Sydney, I thought things might change. I got us a home. I worked myself tired to keep everyone under one roof, but somehow he always worked and yet never had money. Most nights he was gone, off to drink kava, off to chase shadows. Then one day the truth came crashing down. My mother found Western Union receipts, money he had been sending to a woman my age. She also found messages between them. That night she confronted him. What followed was something no daughter should ever hear. He snapped, he choked her, he threw her to the ground. I heard her crying, ran downstairs and yelled, I'm calling the police. That night he left, he never came back. 10 years passed, then out of nowhere he reached out again asking my mom to sign immigration papers so he could stay in Australia. I told her, don't you dare sign anything. That man used us, he drained us, he broke our peace. He was a cheater, a user, a manipulator, a man who lived off others and chased young daughters instead of chasing God. And so balagu, so disgusting. A hard lesson learned. I lost faith in the kind of men who misuse what's sacred, who hide behind kava and forget love, loyalty, and respect. But I'll never lose faith in the strength of women, especially my mother, who survived it all. So as you can see here, this lady wanted to share her story and her mom. And most of these faikava men are like that. I don't understand it. When they have a woman who loves them and is helping them and bringing them to Australia, and this is how you return their love, is by cheating with the tou'a. And it's crazy because this man is still overstayer until today. And he's moving from place to place. So this is from a man, and he sent me a message with his experience and his wife. And he was saying, I grew up Pentecostal and was not exposed to these things of kava even in the Assembly of God in Tonga. For me, I only like to go casually for the music as I am a musician. Anyways, through the circles I have encountered, it was more gentlemanly behavior, but was surprised when my wife said, just be careful. She continued to say that not to be attentive to it too much or take part in their chat groups because some of those boys and men will take photos of their girlfriends or side girls and post it on their chat groups for the other people to see. It was mind blowing and very eye opening. I thought that it was a place where men came to be merry and have a great time via the four pillars of our Tongan values, be enforced as a guy that never attended often, nor grew up in or around as I was raised Pentecostal. I'm urging you to keep up what you're doing. Girls saying to be available to tou'a or engaging in a relationship with a man they see in the faikava should reassess as cyberbullying, even exploitation, where my wife said she dated a faikava boy and she was sure he took a photo of her while she was sleeping and sent to the boys and confronted him on it. It's not just what happens in the gathering alone, it's also what happens when they exploit. The nudity, the shame, and embarrassment of women will be increased if they choose to be in a relationship with someone who is cover bound in their time and lifestyle, let alone serving these men who act godly outside but are ravaging wolves behind closed doors and around the bowl. I pray for your work and I know God is using you to shine light, sis. Ofatu and God bless. I have heard about this, men sending nude photos or pictures of the tou'a. They have like a chat groups where they send each other's, these five government, they send each other's nude photos or with the tou'a who's willing or without the tou'a's consent. So this is a crime what they are doing. If a man secretly takes or share photos of women at kava gatherings and spread them in group chats, that is harassment and possibly image-based abuse. If those photos are used to promote women as tou'a for sexual services, that crosses into sexual exploitation and may fall under sex trafficking laws. That's creepy. That's sex trafficked behavior. I can't believe our man is reaching this kind of disgusting level. This is why we need to ban the tou'a. It's not good. I'm going to read last testimony and we're going to end this episode. It's too long. Okay, so this is a testimony from Nauru. Hey Akanesti, I want to stay anonymous, please. I'm from Nauru. Here, kava bars have become a big thing lately. A lot of people, especially parents, leave their kids at home to spend the night drinking kava, sometimes until 6 in the morning. Recently, the government introduced a new law to limit the operating hours of grog bars because so many children have stopped going to school. The decline has been so serious that the government had to step in. Kava bars are increasing in number and they are really ruining the lives of many people and families here. I'm a former police officer with 10 years of service and a father of 3. During my time in the force, I saw many cases of child neglect. Some even ended in tragedy because of kava. It's really good to see you using your platform to try and make a positive difference in people's lives. Keep doing what you do, and I hope our Pacific people learn and grow to be better. So this is our first testimony from Nauru. And as you can see here, the government has to enforce. If you're listening from Tonga government, they have to enforce laws to limit the kava consumption to help, with the neglecting of the families and abusing of kava issues. So Tonga, it's time for you to step up and regulate the kava consumption in Tonga and have in operating hours and ban tou'a. The children will suffer the consequences the most because of this. So, see, both parents are now drinking kava and leaving the children at home to spend time alone. That is crazy. That is what kava is doing to our people. People say alcohol is better. At least alcohol, you drink it at home. But kava, you have to go and drink it at the kava bar and left the children alone at home. We have to keep raising awareness until changes happen. That's how changes happen. That's what campaigns do. As we are working on our campaign to stop the sexual abuse of women in faikava, and we will fight to do something about this issue, not only the kava and the tou'a issue. So we will continue raising awareness. Testimonies are still open for anyone in the Pacific regions currently experiencing the issue, and also testimony from tou'a are still open. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. I hope you learned something. I hope you have a great week, and I will talk to you next week, same time, same place. Thank you. Malapito Vinaka.